Within 2.7, one of the very interesting things we learnt that is critical for the future of the game is the name of the leader of the Fraxidus, being
The thousand-faced survivor, the grand architect of the Fraxidus, Schwarzloch. But I doubt that's your real name, huh?
While it is too early to think about concrete details, I think it would be fun to think about basically hypotheticals about what this could entail for the rest of the story. To begin, the first point of discussion needs to of course begin with Schwarzloch, being roughly German for black hole, but this is a bit of a problematic way of understanding their name. First off, if we are to take Schwarzloch as black hole in German, then we would have to accept what is basically a grammatically incorrect definition. What would be a more accurate way to understand Schwarzloch is a sort of hole of black, a sort of abyss or a void, a pit of nothingness that fits the other name that Galbraith gave them, the thousand-faced survivor. While of course this is a reference to the fact that Schwarzloch can perfectly mimic and shapeshift into other living beings, notably with Triss in Frolover's 2.5 story, Charon in Galbrenna's 2.7 story, and very likely Leon in Choyun's 2.7 story, hence the Thousand Faces, I think there is something else beyond this, something that is hidden between the lines. Like, come on, if I didn't talk about the symbolism of Schwarzloch, why would you even be watching this channel in the first place, right? So, as we said before, Schwarzloch probably isn't a black hole, but more so a word that connotes a sort of abyss, a nothingness, and a void. And considering that Kuro, number one, oftentimes doesn't directly quote terminology, culture, philosophy, or other terms directly because of Chinese translation, artistic liberties, and other reasons, as well as also the fact that we have confirmed that in 2.7 they've already quoted Friedrich Nietzsche directly within Thus Spoke Zarathustra, I started thinking immediately once I heard the Grand Architect's name that Schwarzloch could actually, and hypothetically of course, be a reference to German philosophy. While I was looking into this, I found two interesting possible correlations that I want to be talking about in this video today. The first potential German philosopher we can talk about when it comes to Schwarzloch, or black hole, abysses and voids, which comes from Arthur Schopenhauer. From Schopenhauer, we need to focus on his concept of the Abgrund, which roughly means in English, without ground. It's a sort of word that connotes a groundless abyss, an infinite or bottomless hole, if you will. In fact, within his most famous work, The World as Will and Representation, in many translations, the concept of the Abgrund, this endless, bottomless abyss, is mentioned multiple times. So what is this Schwarzloch? For that, we need to go back a couple steps and understand Schopenhauer's main philosophy. Schopenhauer, in essence, believed that people were trapped in an endless cycle of suffering. The world is being pushed forward by a will to life, or der Wille zum Leben, which you can kind of see as fate. This force is what pushes humans' wants and desires, and humans can never truly be happy because they're trapped in a sort of eternal cycle or abyss of desire, then suffering, then desire, then suffering. As such, this will of humanity is often presented by Schopenhauer as an endless pit, a black hole, if you will, that can never be filled. This is essentially an endless cycle of suffering, which I think you can relate to the Lament quite well. Since Frenodians, for example, are born of the darkness of humanity, and the Lament in itself is a sort of reflection of it too, then I don't think it's actually a massive stretch to say that we can relate this eternal fight of humanity and its darkness to Schopenhauer's visualization that humanity's desire, that its sins, its endless wants, is what traps it in a cycle or an abyss of endless suffering. And here's where it gets interesting, right? If we continue this Schwarzloch to Schopenhauer analogy, then the way that Schopenhauer proposes that we fight back against this hidden will of existence, this fate that drives everything, is oddly very similar to what the Fraxidists want to do as an organization. In order to escape the cycle or put the will of life that blindly drives humanity towards suffering, one must be actively aware of it in the first place and fight against it. One must essentially reject the Will zum Leben, or the will to live. Since Schopenhauer believed that humanity had absolutely no free will of their own, the best we could do is not be driven by desires and lead a sort of ascetic life doing nothing to, in a sense, break this expectation of a broken and unfair system. When we consider that the Fraxidists want to essentially create a new world order by accelerating the Lament to take a radical approach to solving humanity's problems, then we can see that instead of suffering for thousands of years like Rover has been doing, trying to fight the fate and will of humanity, which the Lament is intrinsically born from, the grand architect Schwarzloch may be like Schopenhauer. To fight the endless abyss that is the darkness of humanity, the entire system needs to be torn from the ground up, because only then can this inevitable cycle be broken.
That truth exposed, have you ever suspected that humanity's fate could also be the design of a higher being? Who scripts such destinies? Who appoints such suffering? If fate cannot grant equal grace to all, if it cannot offer each soul a just and rightful end, then perhaps it is we who must tear the old script and become the authors of a new one.
This is something I find very interesting, because if you've watched my Chang-Li video, this is the exact same message that was expressed in a story with the mythical game of Wei Qi, which was said by both Rover and Chang-Li's master Sheng Mao to be the solution for all the world's problems. If the Lament is born of the darkness of humanity and they are doomed to be locked in a perpetual cycle forever, then the only outcome possible to break it is for the game to restart, for the world to be reset and redefined. The second potential hit for Schwarzloch and German philosophy comes from a German philosopher called Martin Heidegger, who is rather controversial for his involvement in the Nazi Party, and the fact that reading his works makes philosophy undergraduates want to spoon out their eyeballs. What's great for you, however, is that I and other people have read through and tried to understand his stuff, so you will never have to. Within his philosophy, Heidegger coins two important concepts that he invents, das Sein and das Nichts. Das Sein, roughly translated into the being in English, is an Idean conceptualization of existence itself. While objects, like the device you're watching this video on, exist as beings with a lowercase b, Heidegger also separates existence as a separate concept in itself, with a capital B. This is where Das Sein comes in, because Das Sein is basically a question for humanity, who are able to understand and comprehend existence, or being with a capital B, itself. Only humans are capable of understanding existence in this way, and no other thing or living being can do so. Essentially, humanity can define existence not only in relation to themselves, but as something else entirely. And this brings us to Das Nichts, which roughly translates into the nothing, which is where Schwarzloch really comes in. To Heidegger, nothing, or das Nichts, isn't something that is the absence of things, or meaningless. Heidegger actually really dislikes this idea that people and philosophers have had that nothing is a concept that is just the opposite of something, being a thing that is only defined in relation to it. Instead, for Heidegger, nothing is actually a very important active backgrounding force. If it were not for nothing, or das Nichts, then it would be impossible to understand existence, or das Sein. It would be like trying to make a painting without a blank canvas to begin it with. Just like how the Grand Architect tells Rover,
Paths were never truly opposed. One day, they shall cross again. Remember this. We were once your wastelands.
perhaps a Fraxinus existing as a void or nothingness, a sort of das Nichts, is necessary for Rover, trying to save humanity and perpetuate its existence, as a sort of das Sein, to exist. From Cristoforo and the Grand Architect, it seems clear that the past Rover had some sort of involvement with the Fraxinus, so it's possible that they are two sides of the same coin trying to define a sort of solution for humanity and its existence. While Rover tries to perpetuate existence, the Fraxinus may be trying to redefine it, to redefine what das Nichts, or nothingness, actually is. Because while Schwarzloch may be a void, a black pit of nothing that works in the shadows, existence, civilization, and people are defined by their shadows. Without a canvas, what use is paint? And perhaps, without the Fraxinus working to accelerate the Lament, to try to take a shadowy alternate approach to humanity, how can Rover's fight and efforts in this current world even be defined? While this video may leave you with more questions than answers, I hope I was able to perhaps spark some interest in what Schwarzloch and the Fraxinus may have in store for us in the future. A quick disclaimer again, I want to say, that most of what I've gone through in this video is basically hypothetical, so it might be incorrect and shouldn't really be fully trusted. Make sure you have your own thoughts on this matter, essentially. But well, if das Sein and if existence is something that only humans can define and comprehend, then what fear do we have for das Nichts, of the Lament? As Schopenhauer thinks, it is stupid for humanity to fear death, for we are the ones that give it meaning, that give existence meaning. Just as it is foolish for people to fear the Lament, perhaps, because it is a manifestation of the inner darkness of humanity itself. It is something that humanity has defined, so why should we fear it? As Schopenhauer says, when now an individual experiences the fear of death, we have really before us the extraordinary, nay, absurd spectacle of the Lord of the worlds, who fills all with his being, and through whom alone everything that is has its existence, desponding and afraid of perishing, of sinking into the abyss of eternal nothingness, while, in truth, all is full of him, and there is no place where he is not, no being in which he does not live. For it is not existence that supports him, but he that supports existence.